You can like copy someone else's strategy, spend like 500K and still get zero results.
Joining me today is Goran Mirkovic, a content marketing specialist and the CMO at Freemius.
When you work like in a fast-paced marketing environment, you get stuck in this like wheel of like chasing some numbers and just thinking about success through like a whole different perspective or like objective.
This is the first episode of season 3, and we have a little surprise for you this season.
But the key is still how you can align with like your audience's values.
Welcome to the show, Goran.
Thanks for having me, Patrick. I'm excited to be here.
Now, Goran, you are the CMO at Freemius, so obviously you have a lot of marketing experience. So I guess I just want to start with who is Goran and what are some of the things that you've done?
Yeah, already a tough question. I wish I could say that Goran is Batman. That would make this season so much interesting. But yeah, all jokes aside, I am a SEO and content marketing specialist with over a decade of experience in B2B SaaS marketing. If we kind of peel it even like more down, like I am someone who has always been fascinated by growth, how businesses scale, what drives customer behavior, and how great ideas become impactful realities. And this is something like this is a team that has been with me throughout my career. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's it.
Fantastic. So we haven't officially said what we're talking about this season, but you will be joining us and taking on the mantle of co-host for season 3. What's the goal here? What are you trying to do, and what are you trying to add to the conversation?
Yeah. So when we surveyed our audience a couple of months ago, our community, we noticed that most of the people were interested in marketing-related topics. So marketing was a big challenge for them. And I think since we are in the business of helping our audience solve their problems, we decided to kind of pivot and make like a full season based on marketing. So to be completely frank, my job here is to simplify marketing for our audience. So many creators, software makers, see marketing as this overwhelming, mysterious beast. My job is to demystify it and show them that it's not about like doing everything. It's about doing the right things at the right time. And so I will be focused on bringing guests to this season that have really, really impressive marketing experience. And we'll be talking about topics that are interesting to our audiences. And so the overall goal is after you watch every episode in this season to have that like aha moment and to get like that knowledge or motivation to just like go run with it, experiment, and try to level up your marketing game.
And I'm hoping not just for one aha moment, I'm hoping for numerous aha moments. You also have a lot of individual stories that I think are the story can kind of encapsulate a point. So I think you can bring a lot of like, this happened with this client and that helped me in this way, which I think is really helpful with marketing.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been in this space, both as like, on the agency side and in-house. And I think especially my experience from like the agency side is interesting because the cool thing about like working for an agency like Animals that I used to work is we had a lot of clients, well-funded clients, and also we had clients who were, just overall interesting, even though they were not very well-founded. I also worked a lot as a freelance marketing strategist. So yeah, I think this will be, something that I can share, like just stories that inspire. The purpose here is to just like push the conversation beyond like the standard marketing conversation that you see on podcasts. One team that is like part of the season that like, if it makes it through the post, you'll see that most of the guests say, that's a tough question. So I'm hoping like that will be really interesting because yeah, we really want to like bring value to this season. And
yeah, we've already talked about why you're coming on, and really the topic for season 3 is marketing. I think I want to dig in a little bit more on like, is this hard for every business or is it mostly hard for software creators?
I think every business struggles with marketing these days because marketing is ever changing and ever evolving. From like any standpoint, like even like if you just think about the channels, there are constantly new channels and new behaviors on those channels. So like the tactics that used to work, for instance, on LinkedIn 2 years ago are now not a thing. And what is also interesting about marketing is that there are constant changes in human behavior. Like consumer behavior is constantly different, and like oversaturation with specific practices and like content and frameworks is making people like shift from like what was once considered like good practices to something completely new. But for the software audience, I think like especially people selling like B2B, the buying process is a lot more complex than in B2C. And these customers usually require a lot of touch points, a lot of education before they convert. It's not like, for instance, I'm a big fan of like Jordans. And so for me, my buying decision is like there's like cool new colorway of like Jordans ones, and I will buy that because like it's visually appealing to me and kind of fits my style. But like if I'm buying software, especially that requires me to change like some processes, adopt like a different framework, this is something that I really need to think about, that I really need to be convinced is worth like the whole restructure and like every change. So yeah, and like speaking from like someone, if like we're talking about our audience, so most of the people are actual software creators, not marketeers. And so to them, like marketing is not really that intuitive. It's completely different from like developing, because like if you do X and Y, like this will happen. But marketing is like kind of complicated in a sense. You can like copy someone else's strategy, spend like 500K and still get zero results.
So I agree with you. I think every business struggles with this. I was just going to say, I think like when you go digital, it's easy to be drowned out. Like local businesses have this advantage of like, I know my neighbors and I know who they used on their plumbers and their electricians. And I know my favorite coffee shop down the road. Like it seems like you can be totally drowned out. Whereas in the real world, that doesn't quite happen. So marketing just feels more important. So I think our goal here is we don't want you on page 5 of Google search results. We want you at the bottom of page 1, or if you get really, really good at your craft, maybe you're at the top of page 1.
Yeah, but in a sense, like when you kind of peel it down, like the same principles still apply. Most people focused on digital are just like unfortunately detached from their audience. Like we all say that like we are customer centric and whatnot, but my experience coming to like different businesses and like seeing how they interact with their customers and like what's their marketing strategy based on, it's not really based on like a two-way conversation with their audience. So a plumber, for instance, like talks to his like audience, like he does a great job and like establishes a relationship, and so that's why they refer him to, or like her, to other customers. Like in a digital place, it's basically the same, right? If you frequently talk with your audience, if you survey them, if you listen to them, if you adapt to their needs, offer them value, go the extra mile for them, like the same thing will happen. They will literally champion you. They will build a bond between your digital business. So the principles are basically the same, but like the mechanics to how you do that are completely different and much harder, which, obviously is a challenge.
In a world where every software company says we save you time and money, Goran provides an interesting lens about how you can go a little deeper than that. Keep watching. The other thing you brought up was switching costs, right? Like it's very easy for you to throw out an old pair of shoes and to put on a new pair of shoes. There's 2 minutes of switching costs there. With a lot of software, it's very expensive in terms of time and money. Do you have any case studies? Do you have any experiences, any examples? Did you implement a new strategy and all of a sudden it like unlocked a thing and it's kind of like you had one of those like growth curves?
Yeah, I have many of those, but like I'll like highlight one. Again, I don't want to name drop because this is not a paid promotion. But yeah, one of the most interesting strategies is like I worked with a SaaS founder who like had like a very small but passionate user base. They were like in a productivity space, And like instead of spending money on ads and like, an expensive SEO program to build like a massive top of the funnel, they leverage customer feedback to create user generated content. So like they took these stories, these personal use cases of like how their audience was like using the product and how it was affecting their like overall production and bottom line, and turn those stories into like blog posts, social media content, case studies. Not only did it help like build trust and credibility, it also helped them later on with organic SEO and word of mouth marketing. And why this was really helpful, because like it didn't focus on like compiling like traffic and like vanity metrics. It actually kind of doubled down on like the bones that were already in place. And because of that, you know it turned the users into like more of a partners. And that in the end, believe it or not, like after like 6 months, it helped increase like new signups from like organic referrals by 50%. So I think like one of the case studies here is actually like what I always try to do is like think beyond just like traffic and metrics, and like what's really there, like what's working, and how we can like double down on that and scale it and build the actual like marketing strategy on the good bones that we already have. Another interesting case study that I can always talk about, and this is like still one of my favorite brands, is like you have like they had like a complex product that was like more like enterprise facing. It was a tool for like brand building with software, obviously, but the platform is so robust, and most of the users, potential like targets that we were aiming, they didn't really understand like how it could impact like the whole company, like every vertical individually. And since we were like targeting people who are CMOs, like we have to kind of think about what these people care about. Like a CMO cares like about like improving like processes, hitting performance goals, and reducing costs. And so we built like a master white paper that basically showed how much time they were like saving with this software, like across departments, like by not, for instance, tagging a designer or a developer or a stat. Like it was basically simple napkin math that in the end resulted with like the company getting like over 300 enterprise level leads just through one resource. So again, I think the principles of marketing are very simple in a way that you have to figure out how like to make your audiences or like your potential customers lives better, and how to speak to them to like a channel, like by channel I mean like a narrative that actually reflects on the pain points that they are trying to solve.
Okay, so you brought up one of my favorite things in marketing is this wonderful quote by John Wanamaker. It's half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. And I feel like that's so true in marketing, right? So you said a few minutes ago, we doubled down on what's working. It's so hard to know what is working because you can write a blog post and it only gets 10 views, but then maybe all 10 of those convert, right? Like it's possible. And you, unless you have really good analytics tracking, and Google Analytics is a disaster. But unless you have like really good customer journey flows mapping with UTM tracking, blah, 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 you don't know that 10 people went to this blog post, all 10 of them bought your product, or 1,000 people went to this blog post and only one of them bought your product. Like it's really hard to know which one really matters. So I guess, actually, let me ask you this, Goran. As a gut feeling, how do you know what is working in marketing?
That's a great question, and it doesn't have a simple answer. And so, like, as someone who has been like working in like agencies where we just reported success by looking at some metrics, some numbers, I honestly think that this approach is not really effective because the numbers can blind you, right? So, what I really do, and what I think like everyone should do, is just like knock on people's doors, right? So you have this user base and you can like track, like for instance, how long someone has been active, like why someone has churned and stuff like that. And you just need like to give people an incentive to talk to you, right? And this is the only way you can actually learn like what works. And like you can do it like, I don't know, by sending surveys, like doing one-on-one calls, like conversing with people on social media, not as a brand, but like as a figure from the company, and then reflect that understanding in your messaging. So, for instance, instead of like listing products, focus on the outcomes your audience cares about. Like if you're like marketing, let's say a task management tool, don't sell people like task automation. Like sell them the freedom to focus on like what matters most for them. Like this is how you build like trust and credibility and like show people that you truly understand like what problems they have and where they want to go. Like if you connect that in your marketing, in your messaging, like understanding the problem and where your audience wants to go, I think you can like win. But it's hard work. Nobody actually wants to like directly talk to people and like blow up their inbox. But I think it's a practice that's like underutilized because people still want to be heard, like especially if they are your paying user or someone who hated your product for God knows what, right?
There's something really powerful about understanding your user base. And then I've experienced at companies that's at a much larger scale where we'll send out a survey, we'll get 10,000 responses back, and then I will find 20 people that have an interesting response, and I'll email those 20. So there's a lot of data you can dig into. I love that.
But you know, when you do such, and you work like in a fast-paced marketing environment that like has some top level growth objectives, like coming from like top to down, like you get stuck in this like wheel of like chasing some numbers and just thinking about success through like a whole different perspective or like objective or like however you want to think about it. But the key is still, to kind of think beyond that and just focus on like how you can align with like your audience's values. And I think this is like the secret sauce to marketing, just aligning with your audience's values as closely as possible. And yep.
Let me go back. You said something just a minute ago about, you don't want to say task automation. Essentially, we save you time and money. My criticism of that is I feel like every piece of software says we save you time and money. So how do you stand out when everyone says we save you time and money? And here's the real question: should you zig when everyone else is zagging?
I think just saying we save you time and money is generic. Like if you're like talking with your audience, the exact phrasing of like how they talk about their problem, right? And so like if it's task automation, like, and their problem is, I'm just going to like give like a really bad example, like on top of my head. If it's like cutting the time needed to spend in a sauna, right? For instance, if you have that really boiled in your messaging and that was like your narrative, like throughout the development of your product, like you can really own those values in a product. And like most people will actually shop out of frustration for tools. And I think like if you really nail the hammer on the head, it's really important. But like to answer like your second question, this will be probably the most laziest marketing answer ever. But like really depends. Like going in a different current just to be different is not really helpful to anyone. But like if you find that like that small space like that people are not like capitalizing, for instance, I think like the brand names was like Superhuman. I have to double check. The guy actually made a piece of software because he hated Gmail. And like all of his customers are people who hate Gmail. And like before he even launched the product, he was just like having like an open survey, listening to like people about like talk about their problems, what they hate. And so he encompassed all of that into his product, like throughout the entire roadmap, and like really found like a micro niche in like an oversaturated market.
I love that. A huge amount of people that use email use Gmail, and there's obviously problems with it. Just there were design decisions made, so some people don't like those design decisions. So if you just zag and you go, hey, 20% of all the people on Gmail don't like this. Let's create a software product for that. Yeah, that. I'm going to fight for that for season 4, Goran. We're gonna talk a little bit more about niches maybe in season 4.
Nice. But yeah, I still think like as we remember all the conversations that we had this season, what most people said is like, don't like go after everyone, right? Specificity is definitely what you want to get from this like season, that like you should be really intentional and specific with your marketing versus just like, going after some keywords because, the volume is high and the competition is low. If you really need to like have a clearly defined audience to like almost a micro level to like know how you actually help someone to win.
Let's talk about personas for a second. You have your first 50 customers and you're like, I think from what I understand of my audience, the archetypical person is like Matt, who, has these requirements. Is that a good place to start?
Yeah, could be. If you, for instance, have like conversations with people and, you notice a pattern, like it's worth at least like trying and experimenting, like to see like how far you can go with it, right? Because, specific tools or like specific even brands have like specific language. So for instance, like Vans, like double down on like a skater culture and stuff like that. And so they found like who is like, actually Matt or Steve, and like they still like, really like follow Matt and Steve and try to like provide Matt and Steve what they like. So I think like it really depends on like how far you can go with it. But like if you find something, like it's always worth pursuing it and experimenting and seeing how far you can go. Because marketing is that. Like you have a hypothesis, an educated hypothesis, and then you test it out, see how it performs, and you iterate like from time to time, depending on like the feedback you have.
There's always a new marketing channel to explore, and it can be a lot of work to stay on top of every new platform. Goran and I discuss how you can master the skills in one platform and how that can help on future platforms. That's coming up in a few minutes. So I think we've done a pretty good job just defining why marketing is just really challenging. And we're gonna talk about a lot of these things in specific episodes. But I think we've done a good job of like, this is why marketing's challenging. We mentioned already, there's always new trends, there's always new platforms, there's always new technologies. I think a very viable strategy is if you can identify a new platform before it's ginormous and you can get in early, that can really help your marketing. So I guess a question for you is, how do you evaluate marketing trends, software trends, platform trends, and how do you decide when you go, oh, this is a nascent platform, we should invest now?
Part of like doing marketing is being omnipresent in like most online conversations and just like following everything that's going on. And obviously, like as an early adopter, while like all the hype is there, like you can actually benefit from like the first wave of, for instance, a surge of new blue sky users. So I think like every platform is like that. So most of them don't really stick around, but that's also okay. Like if you see something, if you get like some positive signals, maybe like you like, oh, there's a new channel or there's like a new trend you noticed in like analytics or like something with AI that you can like bandwagon on, I think it's always worth a shot, even though if it doesn't like pan out or like last for like 4 years. For instance, there are people who actually benefited from like Vine back in the day, right? And even though they didn't live long enough, there was like another platform like afterwards TikTok that almost had very similar principles, which you actually now are equipped to kind of nail because you did something similar. So yeah, marketing is tough in a sense. Like you gotta like follow folks around, facilitate conversations, post questions, participate in like even like physical gatherings just to be like on top of the curve in addition to like reading and following what's going online. So yeah, marketing means like living it regardless if you want it or not, but it's the job.
Let me ask a little bit more of a philosophical question here. I think maybe this is as I've gotten a little bit older, I've wanted to spend a little bit less time online. I try to go to the game store on Thursday nights and play board games, miniature games in person with people. And that's just an example of like, I'm trying to be very intentional with my time now. Do you need to spend time online to be a digital marketer? Is there, if you're trying to spend less time online, can you be a digital marketer?
I don't really think so because, like, first of all, like, yes, the same marketing principles apply from like, Stone Age to now, but terrain is changing and there's like constant innovation and like, the world is moving forward like with you or without you. Yes, I agree that definitely, everyone needs some time to unwind and just like, move your head from your screen and just like think about, something that's not marketing or like internet and stuff like that to be kind of like fully recharged. But I don't think like you can be a successful marketeer if you, for instance, haven't like logged online in like in 6 months or a year, right? Because like what happens in marketing in a year is literally a lifetime, so I don't think like you can be fully detached. Obviously, you should have some time away so you can either like collect your thoughts or just like find inspiration like anywhere, because you are the innovator, you're the one who tests, you are the one who updates playbooks, who like has different ideas and formulas, and you can find that anywhere. But yeah, I don't think like you can just like zone out for like 2 years and be like, hey, things are the same. Not really.
Yeah, just to put a point on that, I've been on Twitter since I think 2008, something like that. And it's wild how much it's changed. Like the first 10 years were very similar. And then it's wild how much it's changed in the last two. Like it's gone through a shocking number of change. Just what people talk about and how the algorithms changed. And it moves very, very quickly in the marketing world.
Yeah, just imagine that like you're an SEO expert and that like you took a year off, like you went, for instance, to Thailand to just like chill, and then you came back yesterday, opened your computer, and you were like, what?
Yeah. So I got one more, I think, major question that I want to get your impact on, your thoughts on. I think there's been this wonderful term floating around, indie hacker, but is the indie hacker dream still alive? Can you build a one man or a very small company, and usually bootstrapped, right? Like just you and a little bit of money that you have, can you start your own business and succeed in today's world?
I think so. We have customers who are still like indie hackers and, building businesses, selling businesses, just, crushing it. And like, kudos to them. They know who they are if they're listening. But yeah, I just think like as everything, it's getting harder. The world of software is evolving and the tools creators need to thrive are like even more difficult than ever. And, I think like rising competition and customers' expectations is making it critical to combine a great product with smart marketing now versus like the older days. You could have a great product and like you list it somewhere and gets discovered and it's awesome. So yeah, I think like for an indie hacker, like there's so many more elements that come into play than just great products to be successful. And yeah, not everyone has like the juice to be like the Swiss Army knife, but those who have and who are like still doing a little bit of everything can crush it. Sure.
Yeah. There's something very that's something I've always identified a little bit as a generalist. And because I'm a generalist, it's like I understand enough about design, I understand enough about user experience, I understand enough about marketing, I understand enough about engineering. I'm not the best in the world at any of those, but I have all the basics that I can build a tiny little MVP. And then once you know it's working, then you can invest and hire people that help you fix the little things that you can't do yourself or you don't want to do yourself. But the last year has been dominant. About a little, actually, I think almost exactly a year, ChatGPT came out. The investing startup world has gone bananas for them. And if you're doing anything with AI, you can raise millions of dollars. Does that create an opportunity for other software creators, or should you just only pursue AI and the whatever the current trend is?
I think like AI, in a sense, is especially ChatGPT. If we're like talking about like content generation specifically now, he just like created more noise and content that is not really good. It's very surface level. And as you know, like with the whole EEAT, I think like, Google is trying to kind of battle that to a certain extent. But I think like primarily when we think about EEAT is what you want, right? When you search. So I want content that's like, has some form of like authenticity. I can see that like the topic discovered is actually covered by someone who knows about something, right? It's not just like, you know, giving me some statistics or some claims without literally backing it up with experience and authority. And yeah, I think like the content and even the information we consume is, especially in this realm, is not specific enough. So yes, AI is like driving fatigue in a sense of like the content that's coming at you. But I think it's also kind of building a whole different current where people are now becoming super selective with what they consume. And they don't even consume now content based on like, hey, is this particular piece good? It's like, who wrote this piece? Do I know this person? I have to have like a little, even like deeper connection with someone to kind of understand if they're like a legitimate source, just to even like care from the start, not just to even click on it, but even to just kind of like glance over something at this stage. So yeah, I think AI is driving like both noise, but also like a complete different current of content that is building more demand for like deeper level messaging and thinking. And yeah.
Part of me thinks that because the world is just, I'd say the investing world is just obsessed with it. I've heard it described as like as important as like mobile phones in 2008, or smartphones, I should say, in 2008, or maybe almost quite as impressive as the internet. You can invest in it. It seems incredibly powerful, but also because everyone's investing in it, you can kind of also go over here and still do rudimentary software stuff that other people are ignoring. So it's a very interesting landscape, I think, for indie hackers.
Yeah, I just think like the next big thing in like AI that could really be valuable is like the rise of like AI personalization, that will actually redefine like how we market. So I'm talking about dynamic website content to tailored email campaigns, basically anything that will assist you to create hyper relevant experiences faster, right? I think this is like the next big iteration in AI.
Let me ask you for if you could give people one perspective, one lens, one way to look at the world, one way to look at the season, what is one thing you'd give someone? Like what is the right approach to take? Could you give someone that perspective, that approach that they should have with marketing, a fledgling software business?
Yeah, I just think like when you finish this season, and one thing that I'm hoping will be a takeaway is to invest in specificity and authenticity, right? In any form that you can. Like, obviously, it's awesome if you can like do that to your like entire approach, but just because like we have so much noise like around us in like every form of like information, from like getting CVs to hiring to whatnot, being really specific with what you want and like determined is definitely the key. Even like in like from all types of communication, from like, as I said, from hiring to marketing to people.
Fantastic. Specificity and authenticity. Specificity is interesting, but I definitely agree on authenticity, where it's like you just have to be authentically you. I feel like in the world we live in, we crave it, right? It's like, you look at Instagram and it's always people who are like ripped or whatever. And it's not that it's untrue, but people are only showing you the best 1% of their lives. So it does feel fake when everyone does that. So, anyways, I love the key of authenticity there. I think that attracts people to you.
Yeah, because now it's like a whole dimension, right? You have so much content and so much information is going at you, and specific things influence which information you will consume. Like maybe like you want to like listen to me because of the way I talk and look that's more appealing to you than like someone who is more formal, right? Or vice versa. Those are still like the little things that can like flip the switch. And I think like really owning in like what's your personality and what makes you unique, what makes you special is like what people will eventually choose. Like information is already there. I just have to like pick a curator or like a voice that is best suited for me.
There's a big difference between hiring in-house marketers and a marketing agency, and that's because they have different incentives. Listen in as Goran shares why marketing agencies might not have your big picture goals in mind. So you've done agency work. I think you mentioned animals earlier, and now you're leading a marketing team at Freemius. How has your purpose sort of evolved throughout your career?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in my agency days, my purpose was to deliver results for clients. It was basically about executing campaigns and strategies that move the needle. While rewarding, I think it often felt transactional. But like at Freemius, my purpose has evolved to building something lasting. I'm not just like optimizing for growth. I'm shaping how the brand supports and empowers software creators. It's about creating systems and strategies that deliver value long term after the campaign ends. And so I think this shift from like short term execution to long term impact has been deeply fulfilling for me and contributing to how Freemius is evolving.
I know it does seem like marketers in general they have to prove themselves quickly, so it's always a short term game. It's that's how you're judged, right? It's like you are judged on how many, if you're hired for SEO, it's like how many clicks can you bring us in the next 3 months maximum. You don't have a year to build systems. I think that's a strong reason to hire a marketer in house. Just because it seems like really hard to get away from that incentive system of short termism. If you can at some point grow your business and hire a marketer in house, then I think they can start planting those seeds to have a tree. So your business has a tree 10 years from now to cast shade on it.
Yeah, I think marketing agencies are set up for failure, to be completely honest, because a lot of them work on like some sort of like 6 to 12 month retainer. That was the case previously. But now, like a lot of agencies, especially content agencies, like renew their contracts at the end of every month. And so there is this enormous pressure to make an impact, especially like if you sell to a customer based on like their budget. So you maybe like get like a customer, like we want a 10x traffic or like leads or whatnot. If you literally ask them why, they will freeze potentially, like, and then like you get to a point that they have like massively aggressive goals and they are paying for, let's say, like 4 articles per month or something like that. So as an agency, you are immediately set up for failure. And like there's so much pressure to execute someone else's strategy, even though if you might know that it's not the best. And so like as an in-house marketeer, you get like at least a year like to set up a process, or like depending on like with whom you're working for, it's just like a better platform. And if you do a good job, you can still leverage an agency, but for execution, and you need to have like realistic expectations from them.
Got it. I like that. Let me ask. Sometimes I think about critical constraints in business, and it's like, what is the thing that's limiting you most? And if you can get rid of the biggest limiter on your business can kind of grow and succeed. So my question for you is marketing the missing link to succeeding online?
I think marketing is the bridge between a great product and a thriving business. So you can build the most innovative software, but without the right messaging, the right channels and engagement, it's just sitting in the dark. And I think like this season, what we're actually trying to do is pull back the curtain on how marketing can be your superpower, whether it's content that resonates, SEO strategies that drive traffic, or like community engagement that builds trust. Listeners, I hope, will walk away from this season like with the toolbox of what they need to build that machine to help their software business be successful.
there's a belief I have that if you have the best product, people will eventually find it, but you might be out of business by the time that happens. That's kind of my thought is like, yes, theoretically, if you can build the best product in the world and you don't need marketing, theoretically, here's a good example. If you build a pill, you take it and it cures all cancer, I don't think you need to do any marketing. I think the world will do the marketing for you. But unless it's that revolutionary, the world isn't going to do the marketing for your business. You need to do the marketing for your business. And you will probably go out of business if you don't do the marketing the right way. And so then it's like, if you want to have agency, if you want to control your business, you have to control your marketing. And you don't want to be just average at it because then you're on page 5 of Google. You want to be good at it. So it's like, for you to control your business, you need to be at least proficient, if not really good at marketing. So I like the way I think you framed that.
Yeah, but let's say you actually build that pill, right? And you live in a forest on top of the hill, and you don't have anyone to tell what you've done. It will go nowhere, right? So like marketing has many different forms, like word of mouth is still marketing, but like getting the word out, regardless like how good the product is, like you can't really expect people to magically find you.
Goran, I have learned a lot, and this is just the primer for season 3. And I know the conversations that we've already recorded and will be coming out in the coming weeks have even more goodness in them. Do you have any final thoughts before closing this episode out?
I think like my main desire or like ask is to just like give this season a chance. I think the conversations are unique, and I strongly believe they are very valuable. So yeah, expect a lot of aha moments and a lot of like really honest conversations about marketing and strategy that you can take to heart and just apply. So yeah, I hope you love the season as much as I loved recording it. And special thank you to everyone who contributed. You're the best. And yeah, I'm really excited to see this live.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, like, subscribe, and tell your friends so we can carry on enticing awesome and influential guests to join us and share their remarkable journeys. If you subscribe to the Plugin.fm website, you will get early bird access to our future content. Right now, that's the whole season, so go ahead and do that. Plugin.fm is brought to you by Freemius, your all-in-one payments, subscriptions, and taxes platform for selling software, plugins, themes, and software as a service. If you're struggling to grow your software revenue, send a note to contact@freemius.com to get free advice from Freemius's monetization experts. My name is Patrick Rollins, and thanks for listening to Plugin.fm.